Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the How I Made This panel.
Where do I get a Godzilla costume? I can't find one, so I'm just gonna make one. And I actually bought mine from a mentor, the mentor of mine, now a very close friend of mine, Sean. His name, Project Nautilus Cosplay, he's over there. Please give him like a round of applause for sure. He has the incredible 2002 Godzilla suit over there. But, so I got a pattern from him, and he has an amazing YouTube video on like kind of how to just get started on it. But it came with the the base body stuff, so it's based off of a figure, which I'll go into a bit more on like how to make the pattern, because I ended up making a new pattern for the new head. So it starts with a pattern that you trace out when you print out, and you trace it out on an upholstery foam or polyurethane foam. I got mine from just Walmart. And you actually get this, I brought the glue for emergency repairs, but it's this Foam Fast 74 like industrial strength glue that you'll use to glue the pieces together. I kind of show it on the right. That's kind of what it'll look like when it's like kind of fully built together. And so the pattern didn't come with hands, tail, head, or feet, so I had to kind of figure that out on my own. And then for like carving details, it kind of varies between person to person. For me personally, I kind of just drew on the body as I went and kind of studied his scale details, and then went in with a craft knife and carved each individual scale by hand. A lot of other people will carve the scales out on separate foam and then glue 77, and it's not as like heavy grade, duty grade, and it's just to cover the pores of the foam, so you're not like making a 300-pound suit. And that's where you'll get liquid latex, which is about a 50-50 mixture. After G-Fest last year, I got home and immediately was inspired to like redo it. I think because I didn't know what I was doing, but it ended up working just fine, just carving, like kind of shaping the head as you go, and it helps to have a figure for sure. If you're going to make a suit, but yeah, that's the V2 of the head. This is the head that I used that kind of made me go viral last year with my TikToks. And then kind of getting the shape of the jaw just a little bit. He had a doodle that he did of kind of the lips that I switched up. And then I took my time a lot with this, because I was like, I already have a suit, and I don't need to rush this and give myself anxiety, because when you're making a suit, you do rush yourself a lot, and it's really hard to get, it's really easy to get inside your own head, and you really have to like remember, like, this is new to you, like it's gonna be okay, trust the process type of thing, take breaks, it's gonna be fine. There was a lot of times where I felt like I was going to give up, several times, but powered through it, helped with friends and family for sure. With the EVA foam clay, I have personally an X Plus Gigantic Series 1954 that my excuse for buying it to my parents was I could use that details right next to me to carve into, to make details of the suit, and sure enough, that is what I did. So this is kind of what those details look like and the claws are covered in resin, which the claws are like a 3D printed, I think, furry feet thing that I found on Colts 3D that I bought and changed the shape a little bit to match my suit a bit better, and match his claws. And those are covered in resin, so those don't crack. And the shoe goo helps a lot because they are like pretty much all-terrain, so there's not really anything that is damaged to the feet. I've even gotten rained on in the suit, and it ended up surviving, which is really cool.
This is very silly to see on the large screen here. We'll probably go back up to the very, very top. There we go. All right, thank you so much, Liam, for this incredible view into how you made your costume. I mean, I'm learning a lot too about the making and use of foam and all of that, because this was my first time making a costume, cosplay, really anything in general. Last year, I was just really excited about the fact that Ben Furia was going to be here at G-Fest yet again, And I felt comfortable enough with my skills as an artist to maybe say, yeah, I want to make an Ultraman suit this year. And it was kind of a last minute decision. I had just come back from an arts residency in Greece. I was teaching a sculpture class for high schoolers up at a college. And I'm like, I think I just want to use the resource I have access to and just see what's going to happen. So this is Nick Sparger's Ultraman, a brief little process of how this suit was created. Thank you. Okay, so I've always been fascinated with like the super organic, creepy Ultraman, like the weird little shots from the first season where he has like teeth in the Type-A suit. Maybe they're teeth, well, you can read them either way. As well as that kind of teaser that never really went anywhere from 2015, 2016. I really loved that kind of organic, sinewy body of that Ultraman. He didn't really look like a suit, but an actual organic being, a giant of light. And as well as all of Toel Narita's original concept art, just beautiful, magnificent stuff. And so I was really thinking about all of these kind of iterations of Ultraman when I was creating my suit. All right, we can go to the next slide. So here are just some general sketches I was doodling while at work, kind of bored. Really like this idea of Ultraman having an expressive face. I know it's not really something that we see in any of the shows, but in that one 2015 concept teaser, he kind of like opens his mouth and is saying stuff. So I was really kind of interested in that, and that's why I kind of went the route of like sculpting teeth into the mask itself. Okay, we can probably go to the next slide. So we see over here on the left side, I did download a base template 3D model of like an Ultraman Type-A mask, and then I went into Blender to then really modify that digital sculpture to give it a more organic feel, smooth out any harsh edges, resculpt in teeth, and kind of change the shape of the eyes. What's really lovely about this 3D model is that the eyepieces come in different pieces from the main model, so I was able to separate those and print them out separately. So I printed the mask itself in black 3D printing filament over at the resources at the art school that I work at. And then for the eyes, then I was able to print out another thing, and we'll talk in the next slide about that. But with 3D printing, you know, you have a bunch of printer lines, so you're gonna have to really sit with that and take out all the sprues, the supports within that 3D print, scan it so it's nice, or sand it so it's nice and smooth. And so we'll kind of see that in the next slide. All right. With those eyepieces, I used a vacuum form machine to then actually put kind of hot plastic over those forms to then get a nice clear shell that I can then fit into the mask itself. And that could help me kind of understand how I'd see through that, if I can even see. I'm gonna get up here. As we can see, you know, I can't see through that whatsoever, so I definitely had to drill some eye holes into the corners, kind of like the original mask itself. But once those were in, we could see the kind of form coming into shape. All right, we'll go to the next slide. It's super awesome. Vacuum form machines are great. A lot of old like Halloween masks are kind of made that way too, like the little plastic lightweight ones. A sanding process takes a long time. 3D printing filament, especially depending on what kind you're using, can take a while to sand. So I was really going at it with some like 100 grit, 200 grit, 1000 grit, all of that, using some Dremels to clear out edges. Especially because the polygons really were kind of big on this print, so you can really see it. But I ended up using an automotive primer that's nice and thick, that's sandable, to really spray down that surface and then go in with a nice smooth sanding process to get things as smooth as I possibly could. And we kind of see that in the middle there. And then now we'll go to that next slide. And once we have that black primer on, that's a really good color to use as a base for any sort of metallic colors, because it allows that metal to really pop from the sculpture. So I hit it with a couple layers of both like a silver automotive spray paint from Krylon as well as a chrome. So kind of laying those together to get a nice shiny surface. And we see that here. And then I pointed out in the presentation, if you have any details on a surface you're going to want to paint later, you'll definitely want to mask that out with like blue painter's tape. So all the teeth here, I put a little tiny strip of painter's tape to mask those so I could paint them separately later. I didn't want those to be chrome. All right, we can go to the next slide. Oh wait, slide beforehand. Whenever we're working with spray paints, spray glues, anything like that, it's always good to use some aerosol protection. Just putting that out there. All right, now we'll go to the next slide. So it comes to the suit itself. Since I was working so quickly on this piece, I had to think to myself kind of at the beginning, like, how am I going to go about the body? Usually people are using some type of like really thin foam, doing patterns, all of that. I've never seen myself as a seamstress. I would love to learn how to do fiber projects and all that, cut patterns. I'm not quite there yet, but I feel kind of excited after Liam's presentation to get there. So I went with a chrome morph suit. You know, that takes a bit of confidence and with your body and everything, but I think at that point I'm like, I think I can do this. So I had my chrome morph suit, and luckily at my school we have a bunch of mannequins just kind of around. So I made sure to use my blue morph suit I've used for other projects to then put that over the mannequin, so that if I'm going to do any sort of spray painting, it's not ruining my school's mannequin, it'll just ruin my suit. So we put the chrome on, and then this kind of takes a while. This is like a whole day of me just sitting in the studio, putting painter's tape strip by strip, where I basically lined out the designs and masked out where I wanted the red to be, hiding where the silver would be along the entire body that we see here. And so I went through a lot of blue painter's tape, but that's okay. That's definitely needed for this project. And so now if we go to the next slide, we'll see why. So once all of the chrome is masked off, now all the areas that I want red are exposed. So I even use like big strips of like thick brown paper to cover those larger parts of the costume that I didn't want sprayed red. And I went in with like a nice shiny red spray and kind of went over all the areas that were exposed. And so then once I peeled very slowly the painter's tape off, I was able to then reveal the Ultraman pattern. And as we can see up here, again, just like Liam said, it's always good to have a figure with you to kind of reference as you're making a costume. So I have my little Ultraman toy up there that I ultimately kind of wanted to look like, and I could kind of see that I was getting there with the design process. Now right here at the corner, this is when I went back to my house in St. Louis. On my way up here, I realized that the red wasn't as thick enough that I wanted, so I went through, I kind of hung it up on a door frame, and then I hand painted some more matte red acrylic paint onto that. And this is Liquitex paint. It's nice, high quality. It'll kind of stretch with the morph suit as I move around. And so this kind of allowed for a nice matte kind of mottled finish. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And so now that we have the basic form kind of all done, it's time for the other little tiny details that come with Ultraman, from a light up color timer to the lights in the eyes. I was really thinking about the different ways I try to approach this. People use, LED strips, things like that. You could buy those online. Ultimately though, I went with these little LED kind of tiny lights that I already had for another project in the past. And I only used the warm white ones, and then for the color timer, I just actually used thin layers of acrylic paint and painted it inside a Christmas ornament, just like you use for the eyes. And so I got that effect that we see down there. And so it's all very kind of tactile, handmade. That's kind of what I was going for anyways. Like I wasn't 3D printing at this point. And for like the silver around the color timer, I literally just kind of built up some tape around there and some other strips of material, and then like spray painted that chrome again. The eyes for the light up situation, I had to build kind of a frame for them to sit in the eyes so that it wasn't getting into my eyes when I was like moving around. So I need to like block that light so I could actually see what was in front of me. And so I kind of developed that little shape that we see up there, and I had some tape just holding it in. And to then disperse the light inside these structures, I used just a lot of like saran wrap and just kind of shoved it in just to help kind of soften that light to really make it kind of bounce around inside that shape. So it didn't feel like just one little light in the center there. And so we can kind of see the results of that. And then finally too, just walking around, you don't want to walk around a convention just in like your chrome morph suit feet. So I ended up buying at Walmart just some cheap slip-on black shoes, and then hit them with that automotive primer and then that chrome spray paint. And they've held up kind of well. With a lot of flexion in the shoes, the paint starts to chip off, but you deal with that, you kind of figure out how comfortable you are with all that. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And so the last thing is, and this is the toughest part, just how I attach the helmet onto the suit itself. This is a really tricky process that I don't have a lot of photos of because it was very stressful, but I ended up going with Velcro that I got at Walmart, little Velcro strips that I could then super glue onto the kind of back rim of the mask that we kind of see up there, and then I was able to wrap it around and kind of configure a method so it would like sit firmly on my head and hold up. And then I also had a method on the inside of the mask where I would have Velcro on the red part and it would slide underneath the mask so that everything would be nice and smooth and there wouldn't be any sort of like bands showing on the outside. And for the back head fin, I ended up using just like a yoga mat that I bought at Walmart that I then spray painted, glued down. In future scenarios, I probably would have wanted to sew this thing in because it does fall apart pretty quickly and I have to go and re-glue all the time. So as I get better at using a sewing machine and hand sewing, that's gonna be the next step. And I kind of made the decision too, since it's all last minute, that I was gonna go with the more Shin Ultraman look where the fin didn't extend down the back, it was just the head, just so it kind of gave that general look. But this is kind of what it ended up looking like. And you can see up here at this top view that the red suit just kind of goes to the outer rim of my face so that then the bands can go into that around my head and that then the Velcro can attach from that side. And then that kind of finishes up the suit, so we'll see what that final result looks like. And there we go. So I think ultimately the biggest takeaway for me was just having the confidence in my own body moving around to say, you know what, I feel like I look enough like Ultraman that I can just throw on a morph suit, paint it up a little bit, and kind of add on a fun mask. And if I really lean into that kind of janky, creepy aesthetic that it kind of has its own uniqueness to it, that I think it'll all kind of come together and work. Like from afar, it's like, oh yeah, it's Ultraman, but then you walk up, it's like, why does he have veiny eyes and teeth? And it's like everything kind of gives it that kind of fun sensibility here. And then of course, Ben Faria was here. I was kind of walking around, I couldn't hear anything, I couldn't see anything, so my mom's with me, and she's like, Nick, wait up, Ben Faria wants to take a photo with you. And I'm like, what? And he's like right next to me. And so that was just really exciting, and I think was kind of the pinnacle of my year. And if we go to the final slide, we just have some other fun photos of seeing all the fun Ultraman and fans around here. I really enjoyed this one. I also loved adding all the effects on like Instagram with their little glow filter. It's great stuff. And there's RJ up there in his Ultraman from last year. He's got some great stuff this year, so shout out to RJ. RJ, I really appreciate your tenacity to reach out to people, ask questions. I love seeing you on Facebook comments, just talking to masters in the industry, Shinichi Wakasa, all of them, just to get feedback. Like, this is what we need to do as costume builders, reaching out to each other, building that community. It's so lovely to see, and so it makes me feel so awesome whenever I see you reaching out and asking for help. But yeah, great job. And that kind of finishes up on my Ultraman. And so yeah, I think that's question time.
I do want to add in, so I was a judge last year and I was helping our guests, and Mr. Furia was one of the judges. And Nick is not telling you about his performance that he did on stage. I don't know if we've had an Ultraman as excited as we've ever seen Nick last year. He did the moves, Ben was so elated seeing you perform. I wanted to let Nick know that I don't know if I've ever really talked to Nick outside of his panels, but yeah, Ben was very impressed with your Ultraman. So speaking of performances, Liam is also probably one of the most animated Godzillas we've ever had. Last year was pretty insane when we had the big group out here. Liam stole the show with his ability.
I was just outside yesterday sprinting after the Luke MC in the suit.
So you two both did a fantastic job.
I think it was a perfect little duo to have for the panel.
I want to go paint me some spandex, but I do, before we open up the Q&A, Nick, you mentioned Liquitex, or you used Liquitex acrylic. So he mentioned a high quality acrylic. I'm sure some people out there are thinking maybe I'm going to go paint a morph suit. Nick touched on the high quality acrylic. That can't be understated enough. You really do have to spend the money on the quality paint to stick to spandex. It's got to be able to stretch. The thinner stuff will bleed through, and you're going to get bleed lines on your morph suits because that synthetic material doesn't absorb like cotton does. Did you use a heavy body?
Yeah, so I'll kind of add a little bit onto that too. So yeah, the Liquitex I was using, a slightly heavy body. This also speaks to just, where you want your piece to exist at the end of the day. If you want this thing to be used all the time, you're definitely going to want to use like the best quality as possible. For me, it's like, I want to bring this to G-Fest, see what happens, so I wasn't too worried about like the quality of the paint or anything like that. So in the future, I might even use something even, more fancy. Down in the model thread, I'm always about affordability, and I'm really excited that both Liam and I are like, yeah, we go to Walmart to get materials and things like that. Like, that's where we start, you know? Get out there, get some nice cheap materials, and just learn that craft first. But yeah, if we want something that's gonna last, then we're gonna really wanna think about that level of material that's gonna actually embed itself in whatever synthetics we're working with.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the Q&A portion. Anybody have questions, just raise your hand and I'll come to you and you guys can ask questions. Right on.
Essentially be used to film a scene, or do we need stronger materials for that?
I'm not sure about you personally. Like I said, I beat my suit up every single time I put that thing on, so I make sure I can run, jump, do pretty much whatever I can in that thing. I still have mistakes that I go and correct, like right before I ripped the entire back of the neck off to, you know, redo, because I made the back a bit too thin on the new head. Got that fixed up now though, but yeah, I can film stuff for sure. I made sure to do that because when I made it, I want to be Godzilla, and that doesn't mean just at G-Fest because I didn't anticipate going last year anyways.
And yeah, over here too, I filmed a bunch of silly videos inside that thing. Like, the flexibility is amazing on it. And the thing with like film quality props is that you can kind of fudge it for a bit because you're also going to be lighting it, you're going to have it in a scene, so sometimes things do not have to look so hyper accurate, because when it's in camera, you can really be able to play around with how it looks. And so either of these suits, I think, would look great in motion, especially yours, Liam. With the amount of flexibility it has, you can do so many different things, and I could see it in so many different interesting situations that, you know, I wouldn't be able to see any of the like Toho suits in, because you have so much movement and possibility with it. But yeah, that's a great question. I really do want to make a short film with the Ultraman at some point too, and I imagine that would be awesome. Godzilla and Ultraman save the Earth. It is with me this year.
Okay, we'll want to see that next year. Any other questions?
We have a question over there.
How heavy is the Godzilla suit?
I haven't officially weighed it, but I am estimating around 30 to 40 pounds. So a lot lighter than most suits, you know, the original 240 pounds. So I made sure mine was a lot lighter so I could do those things in it, for sure.
You mentioned something about like patterns with the film.
Do what, sorry?
You mentioned like something about like patterns with the film. Like, how do you do that?
So for patterns, I kind of explained it a little bit, probably not in good detail, because I did buy my first like template from Sean. But if you have, like, so you'll start with a base figure, like anything, movie monster, SH monster, or something like that. For me, I had the SH monster as Godzilla 1954 mainly. But you'll use like a masking tape and just cover the figure in it, and then draw in the high and low points, like the dips and stuff, like just lines, and you'll like trace it out. If you could go to the slide of the head where I have that actually. Thank you. Next one. There we go. So you can kind of see it up here. I 3D printed a 1954 for this head, but that's kind of what that looks like of it being cut out. And then you'll go in with like an X-Acto knife and you'll cut those lines out. And I took a picture of mine and I put it on my computer and got I don't know the software exactly, but I traced that out and made sure I scaled it to the right size to get that printed out. The one with my count on it, that she was a kitten at that time, and that was my mess up of it being super tiny.
Any other questions out there?
If you had any other like dream kaiju that you guys could make, which one would you guys like to do the most?
Like dream kaiju?
Yeah.
So I get this question a lot actually, because like I'll ask like, what should I do cosplay wise? I don't usually mean kaiju suits because like time and effort, but personally 1954 is my pride and joy. But if I were to do some other kaiju suits, one of my favorites is 1962. He's adorable. I would love to tackle a minus Goji at one point in my life. That would be really cool. I think between those two, I'm not sure about any other kaiju personally. Godzilla's, if I'm gonna spend the money and the time, I'm gonna do a goji. It's just my heart and joy.
I think the one that I really want to do next, and maybe this is because I don't really have space in my apartment to build a giant suit, is I want to do a Mighty Pecking Man cosplay. Does anybody get that reference? Does anybody know Goliathon at this point?
I do want to say the gentleman that just asked that question has an Ultraman figure and a Godzilla figure.
Incredible.
Irony. Okay, any other questions? We still have a few minutes still left.
I actually have a little more of an answer too. I do because I've gotten my girlfriend into it a little bit, and I've gotten my best friend Mason over there too. Them two over there. I plan at one point maybe making a Jet Jaguar for Mason, and she's wearing right now like a bit of a humanoid Mothra like outfit, but I would love to make a big puppet for her. Or personally, I'm a big fan of Ibera. Sounds stupid, but I really love aquatic animals, if you can't tell by my handle. But I love the big lobster, so I would love to build like a big, like 3rd scale Ibera suit, like for, I don't know, maybe my cat. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Quiet crowd.
So I just want to add something that I found really fascinating about your scale sculpting process. I really enjoyed that you're doing a subtractive method on kind of sculpting and carving out the scales, because that point about added flexibility with the suit, now that you have a bunch of kind of thin points in that main foam body, it means it can just really move around instead of maintaining that thickness and adding even more thickness. And so the fact that your suit weighs 30 to 40 pounds and it holds together super well, I mean, this is really incredible to see. And I feel like that really applies to people wanting to make really flexible suits and aren't quite sure, where to start with that. I think, sculpting into the material is great. Now, what thickness of upholstery foam did you use?
So I use just the 1-inch thick foam. The one takeaway I will say from the carving into it is it's a pain. And if you carve just a little bit too much, you're gonna have holes and stuff. So I'm always doing some repairs and stuff. So tackling it for my first, so the suit is actually my first ever actual cosplay. I wanted to throw that out. It's my first real costume I've ever done. So it was a really, really big pain to deal with, but it was so worth it. If it's newcomers, I feel bad saying I wouldn't recommend it because of the hassle and just mental struggles it at least caused me. But as you're learning, if you really take your time and you're not worried about it and you have the budget and stuff, go for it for sure. For sure, go for it.
Liam, I do want to share, you get this question a lot, and I'm sure somebody out there has that. Can you show people where you see and breathe through?
Yeah, actually, I am really excited about that because I don't think I've seen anyone else do this before on how I see. This one, yeah, I just have a tiny little hole of mesh and it's falling apart. But on the new head, I carved in the low points of the scales of his neck to where I can see, and then I 3D printed about a 2 to 3 millimeter mesh of PLA, so it stays rigid. And then I took a hair dryer, so it was thin enough to where I could heat it up and mold it in the suit to keep that shape, but it doesn't crack or break or anything because it's sturdy enough. And then I used the special glue to glue that PLA to the foam itself, and then that is just painted a bit with latex on the inside. And it actually gives me 3 times more visibility than that one did, and I can hear a lot better, which is really nice.
Now, what about any fans? Do you do any fans inside your?
I do. I actually forgot to talk about my electronics, but I've got an upgraded neck fan that I got, and then these are old Spider-Man gloves from my old Spider-Man costume that I cut off and stitched, and I've got a CosBox cosplay MP3 player box that has buttons that connects to this little battery pouch that I wear on the inside of the suit, right here, with 2 buttons, one for my heat ray, one for my roars. And that is connected to this wireless Bluetooth receiver that connects to this loudspeaker that I have attached to a broken GoPro strap to my chest. And then for the smoke machine, I dropped a solid $200 on a smoke machine I got an ad for. It was an instant impulse purchase that I saw on YouTube. It's meant for indie filmmakers. It's a Smoke Ninja Pro smoke machine, and I I rigged it to with a remote. I have the remote on this glove with the button. And then later last year in like September, I took apart an old Walmart LED flashlight, like a $1 flashlight with the LED, and I attached another wireless receiver and sent the signal to the same remote, so it's connected at the exact same time, and it's just attached to a battery pack. So if I turn that on with the fog option, I can do this wirelessly as I use the heat ray to get a smoke machine, or heat ray bread. And obviously that will go inside the mouth. There is a hole in the mouth that I shove into him. It kind of hurts with the teeth now because they're sharp. But
And Nick, what about your mask? Any breathability issues? Was there any ventilation that you did for yours?
So with the mouth, between the teeth, I drilled a bunch of holes just like through the plastic there. Honestly, you know, if I were to do it again, each new time I wore the suit, I'm like, yeah, I need to make these eye holes a lot bigger. I remember last year when I came down for like the Saturday kind of info session with getting the suits ready, I'm like, oh, I did not drill the eye holes big enough. I got into this room and I'm like, I can't see anything. And I got really, really scared, and I'm like trying to back up. And I'm like, Mom, where are you? I need to help back up to the room. We need to fix this now. And so over time, I've just made the eye holes bigger, because at a certain point, it's like, if you're seeing a suit from afar, you can really get away with making your visible holes, your breathable holes, all of that bigger than you actually think you do, because then it allows for more ability to move around. And your mesh solution to that right there is awesome.
that is why I tackled decided to do the inside of the scales where it's deeper, because I just thought it would be a bit smarter, and like, because I like looking like at photos and stuff, like starting to take up close photos, I don't really want to see the eye holes anymore. I'm really nitpicky on myself, but I thought, like, I'm super proud of that idea that I came up with, so I was really excited to show that off. And that kind of hides the human part of, like, seeing, like, not the man in the suit, but then you get Godzilla, and you don't really see the eye holes nearly as much as you'd think.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Before we wrap up, any other questions out there since they've touched on some more? We got one. Okay.
Real quick, I see that Mothra, and it looks incredible, by the way.
What other costumes do you think you'll make in the future?
I'm actually, as a passion project, are there any How to Train Your Dragon fans in here? Okay, so I was born and raised on How to Train Your Dragon. I love it to death. Might like it a little more than Godzilla, not gonna lie. Toothless is my pride and joy. But, like at Comic-Cons, it was this year, I just started working on it, like a month, and it's like a passion thing, so like not really focused on it much. At Comic-Cons, I often feel kind of like if I don't have the suit on, because, you know, getting on the suit, like a Godzilla suit's a hassle, I can't be in it 24/7, so I kind of feel a little naked at a Comic-Con where everyone's in cosplay, and it's like, I'm not, it's like, they don't know I have a Godzilla suit. I need to do something. So, and I'm a bit of a, like, Mandalorian glazer too, so I decided to, and I've had this, like, custom superhero that I called him Super Shark and Dragonborn and stuff like that, very hiccupy designed, but I am designing a toothless themed Mandalorian suit. Just started making it, and I plan on making retractable wings as well.
That's awesome. I'm a huge fan of Bigfoot, and I'd love to make a Bigfoot suit at some point, and that's why I was thinking maybe at some point get my Mighty Pecking Man suit going on, because that's basically Sasquatch right there. And so if I can make a Mighty Pecking Man, I can then also use that in some really creepy found footage Bigfoot horror movie. Well, I have run around the forest in gorilla costumes before at night just to scare local teenagers. That's really fun. But be careful. You know, you don't want to be near people with weapons and stuff.
Before we do wrap up, you guys did touch on products, where you sourced your products, the 1-inch foam from Walmart, etc. Depending on where you live, you may not have access to some of the more boutique stores that carry supplies. Because I live in Nebraska, we don't have anything like that. So I do a lot of Walmart, a lot of Lowe's, a lot of Home Depot, and local hardware stores.
Yeah, I get a lot of, the upholstery foam, yeah, it's just called Project Foam at Walmart. They probably think I'm crazy every time I come in and buy the entire stock of inch-thick foam and dip because they never have it. And the latex too at Halloween, just buying 10 bottles of latex and leaving. It's like this guy. Yeah, Walmart. I don't know like how easy it is to access Amazon, but Monster Maker's latex is on Amazon, and so is the 74 glue. I personally don't have that 74 glue anywhere in my area besides Amazon, so that's where I get mine.
Speaking of the latex, you touched on it earlier. If anybody out there is going to try and do their own monster suit where you're using latex, stay away from the Halloween store latex. It's too thin and it will absorb too fast into the material. Even if you coat it with the glue, it'll absorb. He's hit it right on with the Monster Maker's latex mask making.
Recommended from Sean himself.
Yeah, it's a thicker latex and it will go on into it'll take your money a lot further also.
Yeah.
So don't buy the thin latex you get at Halloween stores. That's made for facial applications or like Halloween makeup applications. It's not really the best for Monster Maker.
Yeah, I will add to that because that is where I made my first mistake. Was with a spray gun, I have to water it down a little bit anyways to spray it. So I did use like a ton, like 20 or 30 bottles of the Halloween latex because it was available right there, and I didn't want to pay $60 for a gallon, even though that would take my money further. So this took me several months just to cover him in latex. But now I have bought several gallons of the latex, and I have a whole extra gallon at home mixed with 50/50 acrylic paint just for repairs. And I mean, I even brought some in an empty pickle jar just in case.
Question on that, would you say it's a good idea then when you're mixing your latex or your suit to also have paint already embedded in there so you have kind of a base coat?
That's what I do. And so since it's a 50/50, it'll take up the thing. That's why I said I have them in pickle jars because I gotta spread it out a bit. But yeah, I will mix it with the paint instead of doing latex and then paint. Plus that sounds like a nightmare personally.
Okay, who out there is gonna make a Godzilla suit now? That's actually a good showing of hands. How many are gonna make an Ultraman suit? That's a good showing of hands. All right. Well, let's give these guys a round of applause. And I can't state how great both of them were last year, so it's fantastic seeing you guys up here. One thing you'll find with the Godzilla cosplay community, if you have any questions that you can't think of now, come into the dojo area. Majority of everybody here has built suits. If you see these guys around, I'm sure they'd be more than welcome to answer any questions you have. You mentioned Sean Sumagaisai for your patterns. That is Sean Sumagaisai from Project Nautilus. He sells amazing patterns that you can scale to your size. I've used them personally because I hate making patterns. Buy one from him, it saves you weeks of work. So
Literally like $15. They're so worth it. You do have to make the head and tail and like the feet and hands by yourself. But I think from like an artistic standpoint and being an artist, I think that is important that you kind of do that part yourself personally.
Oh, for sure.
Just to get your experience, so it's not just kind of a blueprint done for you type of thing.
So, all right, well, let's give these guys another round of applause. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your G-Fest 2026. And be sure to visit Dojo while they do their filming. We have cosplay guests, we have merch. Have fun.